welcome to our interview portion for today. I believe our working title for this segment is Good People Doing Good Things, although I'm tempted to today say a little bit more of Awesome People Doing Awesome Things. And we have with us today Brad Chesley from Timeline Healing and the Recovery Center. Please remind me of the name.
It's Integrity Sober Living in Timeline Healing.
Integrity Sober Living. There we go. That's right. So, Brad, hi, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Really great to have you here. I'm really excited for many reasons. One, not the least of which, is that this is the inaugural interview that we're diving into this new project that's going to be hopefully a much bigger thing that we're going to expand on and do many more things. But even more so, I'm really excited for the work that you're doing up there and everything that you've shared with us about what's happening, what you're doing, and the good that it's causing, right? The benefits that you're receiving from it, and that you're able to serve others in your community up there with. So I kind of want to just dive right in to learning and letting everyone hear more about you and how you got to where you are with all this, and what brought you to be doing what you're doing right now. What helps you be so awesome and helps you do all these awesome things, right? So take it away. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got here.
All right. I'm Brad Chesley. I am the co-founder of Integrity Sober Living and the founder of Timeline Healing. We like to complement, basically, we're helping people with modern mystery school teachings and healings and bringing them to residents of Integrity Sober Living. So I'm in recovery, which is part of my story and why I do have an Integrity Sober Living business. I tried to get sober since probably it was about 2009 when I first got sober. I was sober for about 2 years. I relapsed, and then I proceeded to not be able to put together more than like 2 to 3 months sober at a time, at most, for the next 8 years or so. That was something I really struggled with for a long time. So I was a person that was in and out of treatment centers and sober living residences from Maine down to Florida. And so I've seen the gamut of treatment centers and sober living residences and various detoxes, etc. So when I did get sober it was 2020, I finally got sober up here on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, down in the Falmouth area. And I tried to get sober here before, but until I came back here, it's a really special place out here, I wasn't able to get sober. So through that journey, about 1.5 years into my sobriety, I started to basically discover spirituality. I started to basically pursue or seek spiritual teachings. I was one of those people that bouncing in and out trying to get sober for that many years. I had really hit a point where there was definitely a point where I literally had completely given up the concept of actually ever getting sober. Like anytime I would try to get sober after having 2 years and then relapsing, I literally took this mentality. I was like, well, what's the point? Like I might just relapse again and then lose everything again. So I lacked hope, if you will, or if I kind of gave up on myself, because after that many times of trying to get sober over and over again, you just kind of you just kind of feel defeated. That depression took over, and so there was a point where I would go to treatment, and I remember I would look around the room, and I would look, and I would think to myself, I hope these people make it, because I'm not going to make it. I would literally be in there only because the resources to keep going, I didn't have them. When I finally got sober, after about those 8 years, I lacked having any type of purpose in my life, and I think that's predominantly why, in addition to that, I was unable to get sober, as I didn't have a purpose. I just felt like I worked to pay bills, and that wasn't fulfilling. So I turned to substances for finding a purpose in life. Like I lived life that I was like, I'm earning money, and the only thing that gave me any type of like, I had a big hole, like a hole in my soul, if you will. I was trying to fill it with substances, and it didn't work. Like no matter what I did, no matter what substance I did, no matter how much I did. Um, but a year and a half in as sober, I still wasn't happy. Like I was not a happy person. I was working as a counselor in treatment. I was helping other people, like they tell you to do, to give back. And I was honestly, as a counselor, I was helping people, but inside, I wasn't happy. But I was trying to give people hope, you know. And when I found spiritual practices, and meditation, and eventually the school, that's like when I found the school is when it really switched. For about a year straight, I was very adamantly searching through various spirituality practices, going on retreats, like doing hypnosis, everything you can imagine. I was trying it, and
Mm.
I was trying to shift my life. I was trying to manifest a different life. I was trying to like basically shift my life, but nothing was working. Like I was just like I was trying though. I didn't give up hope. And then I did life activation, and then full spirit and soul retrieval, and somewhere between, it was right between life activation and full spirit, about 3 weeks after my life activation, stuff just started to, my entire life just started to shift.
Mm.
So it was, you know, they often talk about it in the spiritual practices that we can have blocks and keep us from like basically making it to that next level. I
Mm.
really truly believe that life activation created an energetic shift for me personally that allowed me to basically move forward and start to actually change my life. Because on an energetic level, there was something that I was unable to move past through years of therapy, AA, NA, many other resources, hypnosis, all this stuff that I tried. Nothing was like creating a breakthrough. And then I did life activation, and within weeks I had a breakthrough. And that was just over a year ago. My entire life has shifted in the last year,
Wow.
like drastically.
Awesome. Um, it's it's uh, it's really beautiful to hear because you know I I know that there are a lot of people out there, and I know this because I see them, I interact with them, I work with them, and I also know because I was one that the repetition, right, the cycle, the patterns, the things that just keep happening, and no matter what we do, we just end up right back in that place, and it sucks the hope out of you, right? It does get you to a place of why bother? Why put in all this work? Why put in all this effort when it's just going to go down the drain at some point? It might be tomorrow, it might be next year, it might be next decade, but like it's happening. So who cares? Um, and you know, we talk when we talk about things like the life activation, about initiation, about the healings, like the soul retrieval, how they can break these patterns that we're in. And that sounds cool, but it's so beautiful to actually see the result of that, like the fruit of that in your life. And I experienced it in my life many years ago. Um, but I guess I just still, even to this day, after several years of practicing all this, I still get a little bit of that sense of wonder when I get to see it so tangibly in somebody's life. So um, I don't know, that's really beautiful. So congratulations and well done. Um, I don't know if this is quite the order that I intended to go in, but it hit me as you were speaking. Um, in many practices for sobriety, there is an emphasis put on a higher power, right? You know, looking for something outside of yourself, or seeking some kind of a spiritual connection to help you do what needs to be done. What I guess I wanted to ask you about and see what you have to say about it. And this is not to be putting anything else down, right? As far as it goes for me, whatever gets you to sobriety, like whatever gets you on the other side of a substance abuse issue, then it's awesome. Like do it by all means. It's great. Um, but when it comes to that sense of higher power, that sense of higher purpose, how would you describe the difference between all the time that you spent in recovery before finding the mystery school and the lineage teachings and tools to do that, and after? Like, how would you describe that difference?
I would describe the difference mostly as when I found the school, it was it's more about my individual purpose and trusting myself and progressing as an individual. Where and we still do connect in the school and very much on a very high level, but it was more about connecting with the groups and going to meetings. And I think it really helped me through the progression of the path is to basically be able to tap into my higher self and my own intuition and like what's best for me, as opposed to giving my power away and seeking advice from others as much, or just basically trusting in myself. That's something that's truly developed in me that it wasn't there in the past.
Mm.
I struggled with making decisions for a long time. I struggled with depression, anxiety, on a very much on a high level. And the path through the school is really, and the energy healings has been monumental in basically moving me forward as an individual to basically grow, trust in myself. I own 2 businesses now.
Mm.
And that's a very drastic difference in a very short period of time for how I function as an individual.
It's true. You just hit on something that I think is key. The uh, returning your ability to trust yourself. Because another word for trust is faith. And so I know from my own experience, because I had a very long and complicated relationship with alcohol, especially, but I also spent my 20s in New York City, so there wasn't much that I couldn't dabble in at some point. It was a festive time, we'll say. But what one of the many things that happened over the course of that time is that my own trust in myself to be able to manage things, to accomplish things, to keep my word to myself and others, to be able to function in the life as a functional person. Just it was like slowly getting eroded away, in the way that waves continuously beating on a rock is going to make it so there's no more rock there eventually.
Mm.
And it is sometimes easier, I think, to have faith in something out there, right? And not to say that any of that's bad, right? It is beautiful and wonderful to have faith in, God, source, spirit, whatever that higher power is for each of us individually, or collectively, and whatever it is, it's okay to have faith outside ourselves. It's just sometimes I think, especially in recovery, easier to have faith in that because this seems like it's a little bit too busted or broken to ever be kind of worthy of that trust or faith. And so, repairing and healing and fixing all of the stuff that's going on in here, then all of a sudden becomes this becomes the thing that I can have faith and trust in. In addition to that, right? We're not discounting outer faith, I guess we can call it. It's valuable, it's important, but if we only have that and we don't have faith and trust in ourselves to be able to, to do and to be everything that we can be, then I guess that outer faith, it's a great band-aid, but it doesn't actually heal the wound.
Mm.
I don't know. I've never actually described it in that way, but that's what it kind of felt like as you were talking about it. And I feel like that's a fairly key ingredient, because we talk about in the mystery school teachings, we talk a lot about serving the self first, and it's not from a place of being selfish. It's not serving the self despite others, but it's serving the self so that we can serve others. and so that the world and everyone in it can benefit from us being the best version of ourselves. So yeah, anyway, I feel like that was kind of an important little not so little key that you hit on as you were talking about that. So it's very cool. Yeah. So anything else? I think I interrupted where we were going with your story and what's going on, maybe.
No, so then when we've opened the sober living business, this is what I would say about what I find, how do you say it, is just so fulfilling for me and the people we work with, is that, so I was one of those people that wasn't for the longest time open to this type of stuff, like spirituality. Like, I mean, I prayed and everything, but I wasn't one of these people that was believing in energy work or anything like that. And I had really hit a point in my life after this many relapses, just not having and still even being sober for a year and a half, still not having any type of joy in my life. I really reached a point where I was willing to try things that I wasn't before. Somebody would tell me about, the life activation, and I was open to it. Like, if there's a chance this might work, I'll try it. That's where I was at, and I tried it, and then I started to experience things in my life that I couldn't explain. It was like it started to drastically shift my life. There was be times in my life where I would just be in some place, and then things would happen, and I'd be looking around like, what is going on right now? Like, because it was so magical to what was what was happening in the life activation. Like, the person would say something to me during the codone readings, and there was a couple of them I just was like, that doesn't mean anything to me. And then I'd go into a store like later that night, and I'd be standing there, and then that scene would just play out right in front of me. And I was just, I remember I wasn't saying anything to anybody, but in my head I'm going, what is going on right now? And it was that magical experience that really grabbed my attention, because it made you, see that there's something greater out there, and the life activation taps into that. And when we work with guys in the house, some of these guys, just like I had, been bouncing out of these places for 10 to 12 years, been incarcerated, can't get sober, been on the streets, like, they're down and out. And when we give them these healings and they have these type of experiences, you can see them light up, because they can see that there's something greater out there. There's a divine plan. And it's just a beautiful thing to see. And then their lives start to shift. And it varies across the spectrum. That we'll have people that are really into this stuff and they'll love it. We'll have somebody that doesn't really buy into it, and when you're sitting down with them, and then you see him in 3 weeks and he's a completely different human being. There's people that talk about this. Like, we have a couple clients that they couldn't stop getting in altercations, with other people. That was just baseline for them. Like, mental health issues, stuff like that, or they were just struggling with things going on in their lives. And they'll come back like a month later and they're saying that they're the happiest they've ever been since they can remember since they were a child. And it's those moments that really make like what we do with the life activation truly fulfilling. And so when we started to track it, we were like, okay, well, how can we track this on a statistical basis or any type of numbers basis? So we decided to track the average length of stay, because that is a major indicator in the treatment field. They want to know who leaves treatment early and what's the average length of stay, because these are some of the things that are just really truly measured on a director basis.
And you guys have had some really good kind of measurable results with that, right?
You're right. So year to date, from when we Integrity East opened, we tracked people that have been life activated, and they're staying on average 100. It was 107 days longer. Well, actually, it was 107 days longer than someone that had not been life activated.
Wow.
And in that time, which is about 8.5 months, almost 9 months now, we've only had 10 residents leave. And for sober living statistics, that number is extremely low. When I lived in sober living for almost 10 years on and off, I've seen 8 people roll in a weekend. So like, wow. 8 people leave a house in a weekend over relapsing. So to have that number 10 for almost 9 months is unbelievable. And only 6 of them was due to recovery interfering behavior or non-positive outcomes. And what that means is that 4 people left because they were doing well and they found a new place to live. They returned home. We had 6 that basically had non-positive outcomes. But for 9 months, those numbers are astounding. And we haven't had anybody leave the house, and it was 97 days is where we were at.
Mm.
And when we tell these statistics to people that are in this field, they're blown away. So it's really an indicator of how life activation really helps people. It stabilizes their mental health. It helps them live more fulfilling lives. I truly believe it shifts karma. A lot of people, believe the concept that karma, that nothing can go right in their life. And that's
Mm.
why a lot of people they're like, why am I going to bother? Nothing goes right. And it almost fulfills that prophecy where things keep going wrong for them. And then they life activate and it breaks that pattern, that cycle, like you were talking about earlier. And they're able to break free from that and really change the trajectory of their lives.
Well, and I know one of the many benefits when it comes to the life activation is not just our own personal karma, but also our genetic karma, like things that have kind of come through our ancestral line, through our family. And for I know for myself and for many of the people that I know who have issues when it comes to addiction and substances, like they're not the first person in their family to deal with it. It often kind of comes with the familial line. So not only are we helping with the individual, but we're also helping clear up people's bloodlines, right? Their genetic line, their family. So I do love that aspect as well, and it's such a great thing to be able to see, where the rubber meets the pavement, is that the say, like, and actually seeing it working when put to the test. I know there's and we will I'm not sure exactly how this works, but I know that we will find a way when it comes time for this to be made public to include the link to the article where you guys talk about the data, right, and the findings that you've had and the results from that, and hopefully by the time that happens, we'll have even some more maybe to share. But I also know you guys aren't just doing life activations, right? There's a combination of a few other things that you're working with for some people, and I'd love to talk a little bit about what those are, and then kind of the differences that it makes when you get to include those other pieces for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So soul retrieval is a healing that people in recovery oftentimes really, it grabs their attention and they really benefit from it. So it was the first healing. It's still my favorite healing
Mm.
because when someone described it to me, there was many times when people can talk about spirituality stuff and energy, and especially early on in my journey, like I could zone out very easily. I'm like, okay, well, that's great. When someone describes soul retrieval, and when I talk to people in recovery about soul retrieval, the entire room snaps to attention immediately because soul retrieval is about healing trauma. And from working as a counselor in substance use disorder, um, basically it's 99%, I feel like, have extreme trauma. I've had hundreds of patients come through my door. I think I've had one say that they did not have trauma. So it's truly something that's oftentimes that, the substance use, the addiction, or the alcoholism can be basically it's a symptom of potentially trauma. So
Mm.
oftentimes what we did is we basically got those healings for our people in recovery, and what we've been doing is we're providing life activation, full spirit activation, and then soul retrieval, because full spirit is basically part 2 of life activation. And people are like, why wouldn't you just do soul retrieval right off the bat? And it's because that the person needs to be ready. They need to be the light of their own light needs to be cleaned out. Their energy centers need to be more aligned. Life activation of full spirit allows for that. And before we do soul retrieval, because if you're not ready, the individual is not ready for the pieces to be called back, they won't come back.
Mm.
So that's why we do those healings first. And so we've been measuring it, and the guys are doing great. It's truly amazing.
Well, I love there's one of the really important things that you just brought up and touched on, and then I want to come back and talk more about both the full spirit and the soul retrieval. But you might be able to speak better from this from a more kind of official standpoint, but from my own direct experience, both in on my path and my recovery process, right, or my healing from addiction and substance abuse, and what I have observed in the vast majority of people that I have been able to work with that deal with similar issues, is that most of the time, I will not say all by any means, but definitely most of the time, the substance, the addiction, the thing that's going on there is not the core problem. That's just the symptom of the other things. And when we take care of those other things, when we heal the traumas that are going on, when we help them have a sense of connection in and of themselves without an outside substance, there are so many root causes that cause people to turn to a substance to either cope or escape or feel a sense of connection, whatever it might be for the individual. There's, lots of different ways that can manifest. But when we start to look at the addiction as the symptom of the root cause, the disease, the trauma, the illness, whatever we want to call it, then it becomes a very different thing where then there's hope to actually finally be rid of that symptom at some point, rather than it being something that's always going to be there. It might take a lot of time. It might take a lot of work. There may be it may be a process, but at least gives the hope of being able to finally be done with it. Because there are different schools of thought on this, and I don't say this to contradict anyone, but I know in my own personal life, I don't consider myself to be in recovery. I consider myself to be recovered. And I know that's a little bit of a hot topic issue, so don't attack me. Not you, of course, Ben. But it's no longer on my radar. It's not something that I'm constantly worried about and stressed about and afraid of. It's just no longer an issue for me. And I don't know. I mean, I'll always be aware of the things that got me there to make sure that they don't happen again, so I don't end up back there. But I also recently learned that when my niece hands me a slobbery balloon that she's been trying to blow up and she's just gotten over being sick, I'm not supposed to put it in my mouth and blow it up for her, because I'm going to end up sick if I do that. And after 2 times of this happening, I've learned my lesson, I promise. But that knowing that behavior is going to lead to that result, which is illness, and being aware of not doing the thing that's going to create the illness again, I believe I feel like that's a different thing than constantly living in fear of the illness just coming back and kind of always looking over my shoulder for it. You know what I mean? So I want this to be a conversation, right? I'm not trying to delegitimize. That's not a word, is it? Any other views on this? It's just that's kind of been my experience, because I didn't go the route of AA. That never called to me. That never felt like it was going to be the thing that would work for me. And again, though, whatever works for anybody, I don't care as long as it works. But I just feel like it's an interesting part of the conversation to look at kind of the differences of what we can actually do with the recovery process and what it can look like when we have these tools to add into the mix that are essentially magic. Because many of us were doing the things that were the day-to-day mundane and it wasn't working. But when we bring in that piece of something that we can't quite explain, which is the magic, right? And really magic is just the stuff that science hasn't found a way to explain yet, right? Then we start to the possibilities, right? The things that we're capable of, the things that can happen, the potentials that can be actualized and realized. It's in a whole nother ballpark. Like it's an entirely different world of things that we're capable of when that extra piece of the magic is there.
Mm.
I just rambled for a while. I'm not sure if there was a question in there or not, but I think it's, that was what I wanted to hear from you, is, your kind of your experience on the addiction being the symptom versus the cause.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely the symptom. So that's where we do these energy healings and basically work with these people, and we're treating the actual root of the issue. So then they're completely changed individuals. It was a lot of people a lot of our residents have been in a situation like I was, where they had bounced in and out of sober living over and over and over again. And they were in treatment for, I don't know how many times in a row on average. And then they get to our house and we perform these healings on them, and they're doing great. They've done better than they're ever doing. It's amazing to see how well the life activation is truly changing people. It's absolutely astounding, because we work with it. We were working with residents to provide the life activation, and we knew how it helped us. But people in early recovery, to see these results is far surpassed what we anticipated. Because having 107 days on average, just year to date, of people that on average staying that much longer than in sober living, if you look at that on industry standards, that would reduce anything. And when someone stays in sober living longer or in treatment, their chances of maintaining long-term sobriety is greatly enhanced. That's a statistical fact. So when we do the life activations and we're comparing them, it's apples for apples, residents and people that are being life activated are showing statistics showing that they're doing substantially better. It shows the results of life activation, tangible results. So it's not just, interviewing residents saying, how do you feel? It's literally just solid facts. And
I love that too, because it's what we do is such a hard thing to measure. But in this case, you guys have an actual way to measure it, which is fantastic, right? It's such a I'm going to overuse the word cool, because I don't have a better way to express it, but it's great. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's a great way to work with local treatment centers. If you come up with an energy healing package, which is the life activation, the full spirit, and a soul retrieval, you have people that go into treatment, and oftentimes when people go into treatment, they need something to anchor into to keep them in treatment. They get to it, they're not feeling well, they're detoxing. They get to a resident, they're staying in a place with people they don't know, they don't want to stay, they want to leave. And for their safety, and providing these healings not only stabilizes them, but it motivates them. They're like, I feel great after life activation. In 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'll get that full spirit activation. And in another 2-3 weeks, I get the soul retrieval. They can anchor in the fact that they know that the trajectory of their lives are going to change and they're going to heal. And they will stay in treatment as opposed to potentially leaving. And that's a game changer for treatment centers as well, because then they'll be able to provide healing services that no one else in the industry is providing. There's so many people nationwide, if they found out that these healings are available in certain treatment centers, because we go in there and work with them, people will literally go to that treatment center strictly for this, because they've tried everything else and they need to try something. They need something different, and they know that this is the thing that'll work for them.
That's so many of us that choose to walk this path of the initiate, right, of the mystery school. For various reasons, you and I share a lot of similarities when it comes to things like substance and addiction. But so many of my fellow initiates that I know that are doing this work, that have either receiving the healings or the trainings, or also have gone so far as to be able to do them and teach them. If you listen to the stories, one of the common threads is that we all got to the point where there was something that we were trying to accomplish, and we had tried everything else and it hadn't worked. And so then we found this, and it had that extra thing, that extra something, that extra magic that enabled us to actually finally do whatever it was we were trying to do. In our case, break free from addiction. But there's lots of other, there are as many stories as there are initiates, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's such a cool thing, and I love that. We'll talk a little bit at the end about making sure that anybody who sees this, there are there are ways to access all of this wherever you are in the country, wherever you are in the world. This is all accessible, and it can be, brought to you if you desire it. The I wanted to touch briefly though, to kind of expound a little bit more on definitely the full spirit activation, because so one of the trademarks of a substance, whatever it is that it tends to make you feel really good, and lights look cooler, and sensations are more intense, and like food is, it tends to bring with it that heightened sense of engagement with the world around you. And my experience in myself and in my clients that I do the full spirit activation on, it usually brings with it a good amount of that, because one of the things we're doing in the full spirit is enlivening the senses. And when without a substance, just completely, clear and clean and sober, things are looking brighter and smelling sweeter and tasting more delicious and feeling that much more, wonderful. That engagement with life is kicked up into the place where I would really say most of us know that it should be, and that's why we're seeking the substance to get us there, because that's what it feels like it should be, and we just know that we're not experiencing that. But with the substance involved, oh, we can get there, but it's temporary, right? And it requires something outside of us. Whereas the full spirit, I feel like, really brings in one of the key pieces. Now, granted, there's also there's stuff to do with the pleasure centers in the brain, right? And addiction tends to alter its ability to function properly and messes with our brain chemistry. And there are other things that we can do to really go in and heal that thing when it comes to like sacred geometry and that field. But the full spirit really starts that process of kind of re-engaging the senses to that heightened level that we experience sometimes when we're actually under the influence of whatever the substance is. Because it's, I know for myself, and I experience it with others who go through this. One of the challenges of being in recovery is a little bit what you talked about. Like, all right, yeah, I'm sober, but I'm not in joy. Like, this isn't fun. This doesn't feel good. I'm not having a nice time of it. Yeah, congratulations. I haven't used whatever my substance was, but there's not a whole lot of payoff outside of it. Whereas we can get to the point where that enjoyment and engagement with life starts to kick back in, then again, the symptom that is the substance, then it just becomes that much less necessary. So yeah, I love the full spirit for that. But
Yeah, I
then,
think you really speak to people, and you were saying it well. There's oftentimes that people get sober, and they're still they're looking for something more. They feel like something's missing. I
yeah,
can't tell you how many people where I've gone to meetings, recovery meetings, and they're going to meetings all the time, and they literally are. They feel like something is still missing in their lives, and I can identify with that because it went on for me for a very long time. So I would strongly recommend anyone that is in that situation to just consider life activation. I was one of those people that I wasn't a believer per se, and I started to do these things, and my life the trajectory of my life completely changed, and it does it for others as well. So if someone that's all you really need is you need that willingness. Are you willing to try something that might change your life, whether you believe in it or not? And there's so many people out there that don't know that these healings are available, that it can truly change their lives. And if we simply educate them that these are available, there's so many people out there that they're looking for that thing. And if they try this, it could really change their lives for them.
awesome. Well, yeah, I feel like we've talked about kind of all the important things that I wanted to make sure that we got to talk about while I had you here. Is there anything else you can think of that we want to make sure that we include, or that you want to make sure that the world, or however much of it we're reaching with this, is able to to hear, to know, to hear from you and your own experience, and maybe if there's somebody out there that really is uh, struggling and has that lack of hope for things to change and the lack of faith in themselves, um, what would you say to that person? What do you think they would need to hear?
I would say that I've tried all these things. I've done a lot of this stuff. I also qualify as being a person in recovery because I was addicted to many different substances. I was one of those people that bounced in and out for 10, 12 years. It started out with alcohol, but it was pretty much by the end of that time, there was not a drug. There's not many drugs that I was not addicted to at some point. And I only say that because oftentimes people in recovery, they need to know that somebody was kind of on their level. Like it's hard for them to identify people that haven't been an addict or an alcoholic, for them to believe that a solution might work for them. And I was one of those people that I was that down and out, hopeless person that didn't think he could get sober anymore, and literally just many overdoses. And that's one of the things they talk about in for Soul Retrieval, is that is a traumatic event. Overdose is a traumatic event, and it grabbed my attention when they talked about Soul Retrieval. And so I'm one of those people that if they've had situations like that, if people in recovery have had an overdose, they have PTSD, they have trauma from childhood, that Soul Retrieval is truly something that can and truly change the trajectory of their lives and help them. And many people, like I went to therapy for probably 10 years, in recovery. Tried therapy on and off for 10 years before that. Never worked through those issues. I kept talking about them, but I wasn't really feeling like I was healing from them because it continued. My addiction continued. When I did the energy healings through the school, through On Mystery School, Life Activation, Full Spirit, Soul Retrieval, that is when things started to truly shift, in addition to doing the work, like such as recovery meetings, therapy, is when you complement it with the energy healing. That is what is truly going to break that cycle, for you, and change the trajectory of people's lives. And they need to know about it. It's this, if they don't know, because I didn't know. It took me a year straight of jumping through various spiritual practices, retreats, all this stuff to find this. And then within 3 weeks, my life shifted. So oftentimes people might be searching for something, and they're into other aspects of energy work or healing that's not really working for them. I did that. So if they're looking for that thing, the one that really works, I would have to say that this is it. Maybe save people some money and some time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and we say, if it is part of your path that you need to go out there and try all the different things until you find what works, have at it, all good. But if you care to rely on a little bit of the experience that some of us have already had, who have already gone out there and tried all the other things, and then ended up with this because it was the thing that worked. It was the thing that was different. It had the extra something that really, if we get into the semantics of it, it's the power of the lineage that brings the extra magic, the extra thing, that helps us to break out of those patterns and cycles that isn't the same as everything else out there. But either way, it's the thing, right? It's the secret sauce. It's the extra ingredient that makes the difference. Because the Soul Retrieval, there are so many things that happen in life that can cause damage to the soul body. And when it comes to a feeling and sense of wholeness, of completeness, of capability in and of the self, when the soul is incredibly fractured, we talked about things being eroded away. One of the things that gets eroded away is parts of the soul body, by the trauma, by the pain, by the cognitive dissonance that's created in the mind between who I am and who I am on the substance, right? I just had the flash of the frying pan from when I was a kid of like, this is your brain and this is your brain on drugs with the egg. But there's, there's who I am, and then there's who I am when the substance is in my life. And that the dichotomy, right, or the clashing of those two things creates a cognitive dissonance in the mind that fractures the mind and thereby fractures the soul. So there's so many aspects of this that cause damage to the soul body. And we don't say that to freak anybody out or scare anybody or make you feel bad about it. But it's just about having the awareness that yeah, there's some damage there, but it's healable, it's repairable, and we can bring those pieces back. We can bring it back to a sense of wholeness, and it's such a beautiful healing. I mean, it's, first of all, it's one of the few healings in our lineage where you get to really just lay there and receive. A lot of times you have to stand up, sit down, do this, do that, but that's a good one for being just kind of wrapped in this beautiful earthy womb energy, while the practitioner calls these pieces back and gently invites them to reintegrate into your system and help you to be more whole. It's a really, really beautiful process. So yeah, awesome. Well, that was great. Anything else on your end? Feel like we should talk about or check in on?
I don't think so.
Awesome. So whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever it is that you're going through, whether it be addiction and substance abuse, or whether it be just struggling to live life in a way that you feel like you're actually living rather than just trudging through the muck and just going through day to day over and over, repeating the stuff without purpose or passion, for whatever might be causing that in your life. These tools are available, and wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in the country, there are practitioners around. There are practitioners of this work in over 60 countries now. And we're also kind of spread all across the US. So wherever you are seeing this, you can find Brad and his work at the website that he's about to say.
You can at timelineCapeCod.com.
Perfect. And we'll include links to that in the stuff and the things. And I'm at LoganLightCenter.com. And if you're not local to Massachusetts or Florida, still let us know, because well, I love to travel, so I'll certainly come hang out and do cool stuff. But more importantly, we have practitioners all over the world and all over the country. So yeah, and especially for treatment centers, for facilities that are really wanting to help people get over the hump and into full recovery. We hope that these get to start kind of becoming more of a regular practice, so we can see more people actually start to win that particular battle in their lives, because it's, I mean, societally and culturally right now, the average person's relationship with alcohol, especially, but especially there are many other substances that are just as rampant. I think the alcohol is just more socially acceptable. But it's a big thing, and it's really interwoven and ingrained into our current culture and society. And so there are a lot of people in the world that are struggling with it, and maybe don't even realize how much they're struggling with it, because they're functional, they're managing, they haven't quite hit the same rock bottom that maybe some other people do, but it doesn't mean it's any less of an issue for them. So there's a lot of potential for this to all help to heal thyself by stepping forward on the path to know thyself, and bring a little magic into the mix to really make the difference. So awesome. Anything else on your end? Everything good there?
No, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, brother. It's
Really
a joy and a
appreciate it.
pleasure. I appreciate you being here. and hopefully maybe we'll do this again sometime. Maybe a little down the road when we have even more exciting results and measurable goodness to share. So,
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, and we hope to see you again soon.
All right.